Imagine walking onto a movie set, stepping into the glaring lights, only to realize your director's objective isn't to capture your performance. Their primary goal is to systematically break your fragile mind. We buy tickets to watch actors pretend and summon fake tears. We marvel at their ability to simulate panic and absolute terror. But what happens when the mastermind decides that acting isn't enough? What happens when a director crosses the line into psychological torturer? Today, we are tearing down the facade of shiny Hollywood magic, exposing the directors who turned their sets into active crime scenes. They extracted authentic fear at the absolute cost of human sanity. Our first descent into cinematic sadism brings us to Alfred Hitchcock. For his thriller, The Birds, Hitchcock cast a model named Tippi Hedren. A miraculous professional opportunity quickly metastasized into a suffocating nightmare. For the film's climax, she was assured she'd act against mechanical birds. But when she walked onto the enclosed set, she discovered the truth. For 5 agonizing days, prop men hurled live birds at her. Panicked seagulls, ravens, and crows were thrown directly at her face. The birds clawed at her skin and pecked near her eyes. They became hopelessly tangled in her hair, drawing actual real blood. Hedren physically collapsed, sobbing in absolute hysteria on the studio floor. A doctor ordered her to rest to prevent a nervous breakdown. But Hitchcock coldly demanded that she keep filming the movie anyway. She eventually rejected his obsessive, off-screen sexual advances completely. Hitchcock used his ironclad contract to trap her and ruin her career. Her terror on screen wasn't an Oscar-worthy acting performance. It was the documented abuse of a woman trapped in a cage. A cage with a literal predator sitting behind the camera lens. Hitchcock used calculated obsession to break his poor leading lady. Other filmmakers utilized the raw, claustrophobic elements of the environment itself. They dissolved the boundary between acting and mere physical survival. In 1974, Tobe Hooper created a viscerally upsetting horror film. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre was a waking nightmare captured on film. The climax features the infamous and terrifying dinner table scene. Marilyn Burns is tied to a chair made of human bones. She is surrounded by a family of deranged, screaming cannibals. Hooper didn't just want the scene to look like a nightmare. He engineered the set to ensure it physically felt like one. It was shot during a brutal Texas summer in a tiny farmhouse. The temperature under the intense baking lights reached 115 degrees. The unventilated room was decorated with actual rotting animal carcasses. They also used real animal blood to paint the stifling room. The stench was so overwhelming that crew members constantly ran outside. They would run out to vomit in the tall summer grass. The actors wore the exact same unwashed, sweat-soaked clothes. Actor Gunnar Hansen was exhausted and blinded by his heavy mask. He accidentally sliced her finger with a very real knife. The blood pouring from her hand was completely real. Her blood-curdling, throat-tearing screams were perfectly real too. She was literally losing her mind from severe heat exhaustion. Sleep deprivation and the putrid stench of rotting flesh broke her. Hooper kept rolling, capturing a genuine breakdown disguised as acting. But physical exhaustion and environmental torture are just blunt instruments. Look at Stanley Kubrick to witness surgical dismantling of a psyche. The Shining was his 1980 psychological horror masterpiece. Kubrick was a notorious perfectionist, pushing people to the absolute brink. His treatment of Shelley Duvall crossed into absolute psychological vivisection. Kubrick deliberately and systematically isolated Duvall from the entire cast. He ordered everyone on set not to sympathize with her at all. They were told not to compliment or offer her any comfort. She swings a bat at Jack Nicholson while backing up a staircase. Kubrick forced Duvall to perform an unprecedented 127 takes of this. Let that sink in for a moment. 127 total takes. She had to summon genuine, hysterical sobbing and sheer panic repeatedly. Duvall cried so hard and long that she became severely dehydrated. Her hair began falling out in clumps due to extreme stress. She carried bottles of water around the set just for tears. To replenish the tears she was contractually forced to shed. By the time Kubrick finally got his supposed perfect shot, the exhausted, hyperventilating wreck you see is no longer acting. It is a live-action documentary of a shredded nervous system. Her sanity was destroyed for the sake of a cinematic masterwork. Yet, even Kubrick's relentless pressure pales in comparison to this. A director actively conspiring to violate his actors' fundamental trust. We reach the darkest depth with Last Tango in Paris. Director Bernardo Bertolucci and Marlon Brando were preparing for a scene. It was a highly sensitive scene involving teenage actress Maria Schneider. Without Schneider's consent, they agreed to add a humiliating element, an unscripted element to a simulated rape scene using butter. Bertolucci later openly admitted he completely withheld this vital information. He wanted Schneider to react as a girl, not an actress. He didn't want a performance. He wanted her authentic humiliation. He wanted her genuine degradation and real tears of violation. When the cameras finally rolled, Schneider felt completely and utterly ambushed. She was a teenager backed into a corner by older men, incredibly powerful men who used their authority to degrade her. The scene cemented the film as a provocative masterpiece, destroying Schneider. She spent years battling severe depression and heavy drug addiction. Her real-life exploitation was projected onto screens around the world. Bertolucci essentially sacrificed her soul to purchase his cinematic immortality. We blindly applaud the masterful performances and hand out golden statues. We roll out red carpets and write essays about brilliant auteurs. But the dark truth is the camera is a neutral observer. It simply records. It doesn't care how tears are summoned, or if they are extracted by a director's calculated cruelty. Next time you watch a horror film, pause for a moment. Look closely at their eyes. Marvel at how realistic it seems. Sometimes, the monster isn't the guy in the mask with a chainsaw. Sometimes, the real monster is the one sitting comfortably in a chair. The guy sitting in a canvas chair, casually yelling action.